From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
Welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. It is a Friday night, and we're going to be talking about beer. With me, as always this week, is a guy who I was too distracted by the new Obi-Wan show to think of a good title for. He's the authority on Michigan craft beer. This is Sean from Draft Therapy. Sean, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
Was a very upbeat hello.
Yep.
So
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
you
It's
better
a pleasure.
be happy you got some beer to drink.
That's why it's a pleasure.
You're the authority on this. I would expect nothing less than for you to be happy.
You are
So-
correct, sir. Haha.
So let's get right into it. So this week we are talking about North Center Brewing. So North Center Brewing is a brewery in Northville, Michigan. They're located right on Center Street, just north of, I want to say 8 Mile. No, they're south of 8 Mile.
Yeah.
Just south of 8 Mile. Yeah. You know, they are very searchable on any map or GPS system. So don't take me for direction giver because I'm not good at that. But they do have awesome beer. Today we're starting with Liberation Center, which is their Pilsner. Have you had this one before, Sean?
I have. It's been a little bit, but I have had it before.
Actually, the beers that I make a point of going to grab from them annually when it comes out, which I want to say usually comes out in late spring. You know, no secret around here, I am a lager and Pilsner guy. When we went to pick these up, this was the one beer that I was like, well, we're throwing that in. And then I said, you could go ahead and choose the other two. You get a very nice, crisp, golden Pilsner. You can pretty much see right through it. There's no haze, no particles, nothing like that, as you would expect from this type of beer. Yours looks a little darker than mine, but I think that's just your lighting.
Yeah, super clear, super clean, super crisp looking, nice carbonation. This is a 5% classic lager.
I didn't even look up that type of good stuff, but
What do you get on the nose on this?
on the nose, I'm getting I get a little bit of lemon, just a little bit of citrus, a little grassiness on there, maybe a little bit of apple or something a little more tart like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm picking up. I mean, I'm getting other things, but that was the one thing I was wondering about.
So it's got a great nose though. I mean, it's very inviting. It's very fresh, very refreshing just on the nose. It's a good warm weather beer for sure.
Oh, yeah. Fits in today's weather. I guess today was a little cooler than we initially thought it would be, but we've
thought it was
devolved into
muggy.
talking about the weather. Hello. It'll be sunny and
Right.
87 degrees tomorrow through the weekend, whatever.
Until it's not, because we're in Michigan where it will probably snow tomorrow in July.
Maybe. That's possible.
This has a little bit more fruit on it than what I remember getting off of this before. Like it's a little more, so the last beer episode you were talking about getting like the pith of an orange.
Yeah.
This almost feels like getting like the, it's not quite orange per se, but I'm getting like the fleshy part of the orange, like that type of mouthfeel and consistency off of it.
Yeah, it doesn't taste what I remember it to be. I mean, again, it's been probably a year or two, might have been 2020
Yeah.
the last time I've had this, but it's not coming across to me as classic lager has in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like the hops are, I don't want to say they're muted, but they're definitely in the background. There's more of like a fruit or maybe even like a floral thing that's kind of peeking out in the front.
I would say I would lean a little bit more towards the floral.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we said, this brewery is in Northville, Michigan. So this is a hyper local brewery. I'd say they're pretty well known in the local area. Like not just like I'm in Waterford, so I'm a good 30 minutes away from this brewery, and I still am more than glad to make the pilgrimage out here. But I love that they got the real Main Street hometown feel to them, almost like a Cheers, where there's a lot of people where you go in and they're gonna greet a lot of people by name, know a lot of people face by face, and all that. Their staff is really good at making you feel welcome and invited in, even if they don't know you.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of like one of the negatives I hear about some breweries is like you almost feel like you have to have like your membership card to kind of feel like you're part of the clique, and I don't ever see that or hear that about Northville, which is a really good thing.
It's situated right outside their downtown, so it's really, like you said, it has that more kind of down-home feel. It's just a little bit outside of downtown, so it's a little bit of a walk, but it's not too bad. I mean, it's Northville's bit downtown isn't like, downtown Detroit or Ann Arbor.
It's like 2 city blocks.
Yeah, give or take. But yeah, when you walk in, it's never like a record scratch when you walk in and like everybody turns and looks at you because some new person walked in the door. It's a nice kind of place to just kind of plop down and have a couple beers. Because I've done that a few times in the past too, especially over the last couple of years. It's just a nice spot. And inside, it's got probably one of the nicest feels of a tap room. Just overall, like from when you walk in, they have the nice kind of like Center Brewing Company lighting on the wall. It's all, it's like what you would expect in a brewery kind of, right? It's got that wood all over the walls and everything. So it kind of fits. You walk in, you're walking into a brewery, but it is really inviting. It's a nice place to kind of go. And I always sit at the bar. I think when I first started going there, if I go with a friend generally, and it's not you, I'll sit at a table, but the last probably dozen times or half a dozen times I've been in there, I always sit at the bar. I always sit at the bar anyways, but that's generally where you'll find me.
I was going to say I'm a bad influence. I always make people sit at the bar. So,
well, I've kind of learned that I like that a little bit better because you get serviced a little faster. So when you're done, they kind of know that you're either on your last couple sips or you're done. They're like, hey, you want something else? And otherwise, if you're just sitting at a table, this is just a generality. You're just kind of sitting there waiting and, oh, okay, well, hopefully they notice that I'm sitting here without a beer. So you always get faster service. That's always, more drinks, more beer.
There's
all
that.
about that.
I also feel for a guy who considers himself to be antisocial and that I generally don't like human beings all that much. If you go to a bar and you want to interact with people, you're going to have a much better shot at doing that at the bar than if you do it like go sit at a table and kind of block yourself off. I guess that could be for better or worse. I don't know. But for me, I'd much rather sit at the bar, talk to the staff when they want me to, try to not overstep that and annoy them, not just be the guy who won't shut up at the end of the counter.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking before we started recording about a podcast we were listening to where Aaron from Drafting Table was on the Travis Fritz, he's the master brewer over at Old Nation. They were talking about breweries and they were talking about Drafting Table in particular. And I was looking this word up. It's Stammtisch. And it's like, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm probably totally butchering it, but yeah, it's like a meeting table.
That's their.
Yeah.
That's where I got married on that. So
you stood on the table?
They cleared the table and we used that little stage area. But yeah, that's a big focal point for them. And they do have times where there's, I don't know, it almost feels like you're part of a clique to get up there, like to sit there, because it's always one of like 3 or 4 groups of regulars that are up there. But sometimes you'll see the owner and his family up there, or whatever. It's rarely, as someone who's a regular in that place, it's rare that I'll look in that corner and see people that I don't know.
So what do you think about so the whole kind of preface or the whole concept behind the table is that if you go into a brewery or a bar and you're alone, you can sit at that table and other people will come and join you, other people of like mind. So like you're saying, you could be antisocial, so you sit at the bar, whereas this kind of concept of a table is that you all go and you sit at this table, or people go and sit at this table so they can meet other people. Would you like to see that be a thing that you see at other breweries, or do you think it's kind of like not something that you would participate in?
Kind of have mixed feelings on it. For a while, I used to frequent Griffin Claw, and they have a bar too, but all their seating is like communal there. So they basically just put a bunch of like nicer picnic tables down.
Yeah, long
and
ones.
They will seat you with, they'll seat you with whoever. So like if there is 2 spots at a picnic table and you have 2 people with you, that's where you're going, regardless of who's next to you. And I'm sure there's other breweries that do seating like that too, that just aren't coming to mind at the moment. I've noticed for me, when I've been at communal seating like that, like where I'm just kind of sitting with whoever happens to be there, it still feels like this is our section of the table and this is your section of the table. Leave me the fuck alone, whatever. That table, a drafting table, is a little bit different because, again, most of the time I know who's up there anyway, so I'll at least walk by and say hi to them or something like that. But if I'm going into a bar where I don't really know a ton of people, I think I almost feel maybe it's a American thing, because if I had to guess, knowing Aaron, that's probably a German tradition that he picked that up from. I almost feel like if you're, the American way of doing that would be to sit at the bar, and if you want to have a conversation with someone, where if you're at a table, it's almost saying like, I don't want to have a conversation with someone who's not at my table.
Yeah, I just wonder if it would be something. I think that in It is a German thing. I think it's more of a German thing. And I think the American equivalent, like you said, is just kind of sitting at the bar. You know, you're going to sit at the bar.
Yeah.
There's a stool open. If there's, you know, if the whole place is packed and one single person or maybe two people come in and there's a spot, hey, you mind moving over a spot? Yeah, no problem, whatever, you know, to make room for two people to sit next to each other. But yeah, I think it's kind of the American equivalent is kind of just sitting at the bar. I've never been to Germany, so I don't know, you know, all the traditions and whatnot, but it sounds like the American version is just sitting at the bar.
I would like to go to Germany, but I have not been either. As this is kind of warming up and we're working through it, I'm getting a nice, like, almost like a buttery cracker finish on it, or like a bready finish on the back end. Not quite like a shortbread butter, but like almost like a Ritz or like a club cracker.
I could see that. I feel like as it's getting a little bit warmer, I'm picking up a little bit more, like the hoppiness, the little, like really very slight hoppiness is kind of pulling through too on the finish.
The nose hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, no, same here.
But I mean, I still like this one. This is a nice, easy, enjoyable beer. And really, like, you know, the slogan of this brewery is, let me read it so I don't fuck it up. If you like it, it's good beer. I mean, that's pretty simple. And that's one of the things I like about this place is they're not overthinking whether or not a beer is good. It's just drink something that you enjoy. And it's really hard to have too much negative to say about this because really there is no real negative here. It's just a good, enjoyable beer that's easy to put back and easy to sip on.
Yeah, and I really love that slogan. If you like it, it's a good beer. There's so many people, I'm sure that, you know, at some point, you and myself included, have been considered like pretentious beer snobs or whatever. And everybody has their opinion. You know, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has when they all stink. It's just... Yeah,
I don't know why, but they all stink is a good add-on to that.
Oh, I didn't know that wasn't part of it. Normally, I didn't make that. I can't claim.
I don't think I've ever heard it before, but I'm giving you credit for it.
Well, so. I didn't invent it all. I don't know who did, but there are so many people that have all these big, you know, grandiose, broad opinions about what they think beer should be and what they think people should drink. And if you drink a lager, it's garbage, or if you drink an ale, it's shit. And, you know, we got to add boysenberry to this thing, or we have to add, you know, quince or something to some other thing to make it so it's different.
What the fuck is
people,
quint?
I don't know, a fruit or a vegetable that starts with a Q. I'm not really sure what it is, but you know, it's just everybody has their opinions, and we seem to always be chasing these things that are just the same old with an additive in it. And really, when it boils down to it, if you drink it and if you like it and it's good to you, then that's all that matters. You know, it doesn't matter what anybody else really has to say about it.
I like that they put that on every one of their cans. I mean, it's such a good motto. And you know what's funny is you said that we've both run into that in snobs and people giving your opinion. What's really funny for me is like I never get really shit about like the craft beer that I drink. I always get shit about the not craft stuff that I drink. Like again, well known I'm a PBR fan, and every time that I make a point of like saying that I like PBR, someone comes out of the woodworks like, you know that shit, right? I'm like, well, yeah. But it's like $20 for 30 cans. It's good shit.
Yeah, maybe it's shit, but it's something I like. Like, I honestly kind of fear sometimes saying a macro that I like because I'm so entrenched, you know, in talking about craft beer. I will drink craft beer above all else if it's an option. But if I go someplace, you know, we talked about this when we met up to pick these beers up. When I was on vacation, we were drinking all this kind of craft beer, and then I just said, hey, can you pick me up like a case of Modelo? You know, just something to kind of change the pace, like just something you can drink all day. I can't drink a 9%.
Weren't you like half in the bag and then saw that I was drinking one at the ballpark, and all of a sudden you had like a case of them?
I was probably a fifth in the bag. I don't think I was all the way in. But can't drink 9% double IPAs all day. That just it's not gonna turn out well if you want to drink all night. And if you want to drink all day, you got to start in the morning. So we might as well start on something light.
I'm not afraid to sit because honestly, like I like all the craft stuff like that. I'm not trying to shit on that by any stretch, but I also like just being able to have a handful of beers and not feel like garbage. And even with a lot of the craft stuff that's out there, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to feel probably more like in control myself if I have 5 Miller High Lifes and if I have 5, I don't know, Two Hearteds.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Two Hearted's going to put you under 5 of them. Jeez.
Just using it as an example.
Yeah, no,
but
I know.
I don't know. It's a stupid thing. And I never really understood why people feel the need to really try to force their opinion on other people as to what they do and don't like. it's just fucking. We kind of got into this in the last beer episode when we were talking about seltzers and stuff like that, just because people get so like put off by it. And again, what do you care? If you see John over there, he's in there at the end of the bar wearing like a Danzig shirt and drinking a pink seltzer. What do you give a shit?
I don't know. Everybody gets booger lipped about the beer they like, and if you don't like it, then it's not cool enough or whatever. And again, coming from someone
that I hope that the things that I like become unpopular again, because I would love to see them become more affordable because people don't want to buy them. So they're not only more affordable, but more available. This is partially coming as a bourbon fan. Like, I can't wait for bourbon to not be cool again, so I can actually buy the fucking things I want to buy. But
you might be waiting a while.
Oh, I know I will. So.
I do sometimes feel a little bit hypocritical when I talk, like I said, talk about craft beer all the time, and I'm not drinking it, but it's just whatever. People drink what you want to drink. Who cares?
What have you been watching this week? I know it's only been a few days since we talked, but
I got really happy because I saw that Dark Side of the 90s on Vice came back. Because while I lived through the 90s, and sometimes it seems a little ham-fisted, and they really stretch like how they can connect things together. I do find it, I don't know, nostalgic, get a little bit of that nostalgia feeling when I watch something about the 90s and they talk about how crappy it was, and I think about it. It's like, it's probably, in all honesty, a lot simpler than it is today. But again, that could just be, I'm older, so I'm a little bit wiser, and I can see a little bit more of the picture now. And when I was, in the 90s, that was 30 years ago, I was an ill-informed child, young adult. And now I'm just an ill-informed adult, middle-aged man.
Well, I don't know. Any of those, I totally used to love VH1s. Like, I love the 80s and I love the 90s, and up until they got to like 2000s, I was like, this is dumb now.
I know about this. The only thing I don't like about those shows, and the thing that I like that Dark Side of the 90s does or doesn't do compared to those VH1 shows, is it's kind of cool when you see a comic that you like that you don't hear a lot about. At the time you see like Paul Scheer, or you see, I don't know, Hal Sparks or somebody on there that isn't super well known. They get a couple minutes, but I like that after a while I got kind of old with all because it's just them trying to be as funny as possible. And the Dark Side of the 90s. I could do without ever seeing Michael Ian Black again. Yeah. So. And Dark Side of the 90s, they get people that are relevant to the time, or maybe commentators. It's not trying to be funny. And I think you can kind of almost go a little bit too far with that if you think about like that Woodstock documentary that HBO did, the Woodstock 99. Did you ever see that?
I don't think I did.
They really start. I mean, yeah, they really get into like how Limp Bizkit basically set off a riot, right? And I'm no Fred Durst fan. I'm not a Limp Bizkit guy. I was never into that, but it gets a little. There's so many things that go into that, and it's like, oh yeah, white angst is what young white men and their angst is what started this riot, and Fred Durst stoked it. And it's like there are a lot of things going on. Was it a lot of white guys? Yes. Were there a lot of misconduct? Absolutely. Am I condoning it? Absolutely not. But it's, let's
condone it.
Yeah, let's not pick low-hanging fruit on everything all the time. So that was my complaint with that. But I like Dark Side of the 90s, just getting back to that. I love the Dark Side of the Ring stuff, the wrestling stuff they do, because I don't necessarily like to watch wrestling anymore, but I still like all the backstage and all the lore kind of stuff around it. So that's why I like that show.
I'm a firm believer that if you want to give any wrestler a microphone and let him tell his story, I will watch every fucking second of it. Like they did, I think it was 10 different episodes where they did like a 2-hour long like documentary on a bunch of like WWE guys going back to like, Macho Man,
like Shawn Michaels.
Yeah,
Stone
you
Cold.
want to put Macho Man on my TV, I will watch it because he's worth watching no matter what.
I like those because WWE and WWF for the longest time would not give you any negative side of the story because it was all for kids. They're all marketing towards kids. Mm-hmm. But all those A&E shows, the biographies that they did, the 2-hour episodes that they did on each wrestler, they go into like the good, the bad, and the ugly. They talk. Shawn Michaels talks about his addiction to different painkillers and whatnot. So, and Macho Man was no saint. None of these guys are saints. Obviously, nobody's perfect.
Right.
And maybe whatever your opinion is, what it is on that stuff. But that's what I liked about that is it's not just rose-colored glasses where it seems like all the other stuff that they had ever done before that or for the most part, was all just like how they're superheroes, basically. Even the biography stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how you make a guy like the character of not the person, but the character of Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't know how you make him a superhero, but I mean, I like a guy who's cracking beers and driving a Zamboni into a wrestling rink and fighting Vince McMahon. That's always entertaining.
Did you watch WWE around that time?
Not really. I liked it when I was a kid, up until I was probably like, it was up until I discovered like that I liked football. So probably somewhere between 10 and 12, that ballpark, roughly.
Who were the wrestlers then? Because we're like 6 years apart.
The big ones. So it was still like Shawn Michaels and Macho Man was around, Hulk Hogan was around, but they were kind of doing the WCW thing.
Okay.
Razor Ramon was one of the bigger ones. Who was the sumo wrestler guy?
Yokozuna.
Yeah, he was literally one of the big ones.
In more ways than one.
It was before the Attitude Era though. So like when
like on the cusp.
When Stone Cold, yeah, it was before all of that. I remember I went to two different events. I think it was a SummerSlam that was at the Palace when that was still standing. I was a little kid, so I was like totally like ape shit into it.
You were marking out.
Wait, I was what?
Marking out.
I don't know what that means.
That means when you get super excited over some heat.
Then yes,
or a pop.
Absolutely. And then I went to, I don't know what number it was, but I went to WrestleMania at Ford Field. And at that point, I was a legal drinking age adult, and my dad just called me up and goes, "Do you want to go to WrestleMania?" I'm like, "Not really." He said, "It's free." I'm like, "Okay." I got so fucking drunk at that event. All I know for sure is that the Undertaker was pretty cool. And I bought like $150 WrestleMania baseball jersey that I have no idea what happened to it.
I thought you were going to say you bought a belt, but a jersey's pretty
that
close.
would have been a better purchase, but a jersey somehow was what happened. So
it's funny when you say, when I was a kid and I watched wrestling and these were the guys, and that's why I asked you, because the guys that I watched were like, I watched it when I was real young, probably like 6 or 7, got into it. Like all the kids in my neighborhood were big into, and all kids are really big into wrestling. When it got big the first time, it was like King Kong Bundy, King Harley Race was still doing stuff. Hulk Hogan, of course, Macho Man, all those guys. Who was the other? Like Big John Studd.
Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, Ultimate Warrior. And then I kind of, you get a little older and you're like, yeah, this is stupid. And then my friend's sister, who was a couple years younger than us, was really into it. And then we got into it again for about a year. And then when I got to be probably when the NWO stuff started, and then, of course, the Attitude Era for WWE, watched the shit out of it. And because I worked for the cable company at the time, all the pay-per-views were half off. So we would get every pay-per-view for months.
Sure.
And it was, that's super crazy expensive now when you think about it. They're still $25 a pop at that time in 98, 99, $2,000. But yeah, just watch the shit of it. I went to a couple. They used to have this event for WCW. It was called World War III, and they would have 3 rings set up, and they might wrestle.
I remember those.
Yeah, they might wrestle at the same time. They were at the Palace, 2 of them. I think they only did it twice, and they had them at the Palace both times. I went to both of those. But what have you been watching,
I'm pretty
John?
Sure. Before that, I'm pretty sure that my newfound love in the last couple years of UFC directly comes from my love for WWF as a kid. Yeah. So I only caught up on a couple things. I started the week after we recorded earlier this week. I watched Unrivaled, which is I think it's new. I think it just came out. The documentary it's like a 30 for 30 or E60 or whatever on the Avalanche and Red Wings rivalry from the 95, roughly 96 up through, they go up to 2002, the Wings' 3rd cup in that run.
Yeah.
It's pretty entertaining, but I have a feeling that watching this as a guy who not only lived through that and was in a lot of ways a hockey fanatic, this is probably how people felt watching in the Michael Jordan documentary a couple years ago in Chicago. It's like, yeah, we know Michael Jordan was the best fucking basketball player ever. We live in Chicago. Like, duh. I mean, it's the only one of these I've seen Claude Lemieux's side, really. A lot of it. Are we doing the Saison next?
Yeah, we can do the Saison next.
It's the only one that I've seen really focus on like the Avalanche side, because obviously I'm a Wings fan, so I'm looking at it through Red Wings glasses most of the time. But there really wasn't anything in the documentary that I didn't already know. So that kind of sucks. Like I was hoping there would be something. And I'm like, oh, I had no idea. I would be willing to bet that like your average hockey fan that's in, say, Nashville or something like that probably doesn't quite have the same care about it.
Yeah, same point of reference. We were so just entrenched in it here.
Yeah.
I heard it was good, but the only thing I heard that was off about that was the way they filmed like some of the interviews, like the lighting that they did was like really weird. They had like shadows across people's faces and stuff.
Well, I don't know if it's just shadows, but what they do on it, they do a really good job of making you realize how fucked up Darren McCarty and Chris Draper's faces are. They're really the only team that's been, with the exception of the last like 3 years, they're the only team in this professional team in this state that's been consistently relevant for what, 25, 30 years now. You know, Draper he's high up in the chain of command for the Red Wings. McCarty's around all the time. I buy marijuana products from the place where he, works at or he's out of. I have his CBD gummies over there somewhere. They're both like fixtures within the community. And I mean, I was talking to Darren McCarty at the Joe, like between periods this year, and I didn't notice his face looking this like shifted to one side. But how they shot those two players in particular, it's like, man, these guys have seen some fights. So,
yeah, they've lived.
Right. All right. You want to do the rundown on this one?
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the next beer from North Center Brewing Company. Again, this is a North Center Brewing Company episode. So we're going to talk about their Saison. It's called Praise the Sun. The label has a guy looking like he's meditating. He's got the cross-legged position with a sun behind him. I think they should have done a Dark Souls reference here, considering it's Praise the Sun. But that's just my opinion. On the back here, it says Praise the Sun Saison. It's a Belgian-style Saison spiced with pink peppercorn. An homage to summertime, this beer is refreshing and flavorful. It is 5.2% alcohol by volume. Again, brewed and bottled by North Center Brewing Company in Northville, Michigan. If you like it, it's a good beer. I haven't cracked this yet. You have. What are your impressions on the nose?
I have. So on the nose, I'm kind of finding I am finding that peppercorn that you were saying, or some kind of pepper in there. Maybe like a baking spice or a mold spice, something like that. I'll use your buzzword. Maybe a little bit of coriander. It's definitely a more earthy or herbal nose, to say the least. I haven't tasted it yet, but it's definitely more herbal for sure. What are you getting?
Well, I'm just looking at it while you were talking. It's really hazy. Really, you can tell it's got a lot of particulate in there. Head is really brilliant white, like really bright white. I got a really small head, maybe about half a finger, and that's being pretty generous. But it is sticking around.
That's about where I am.
It's got
get a little bit of plum, maybe something like that.
Okay.
Off of it as it sits for just a second.
Definitely, it's got that funky, farmhousey kind of what you would expect from a Saison, right? It's got that funkiness to it. Yeah, I do. I pick up on some kind of a little bit of a pepper, and I wouldn't say plum personally, but I guess I could kind of pick that up. So what about your tasting?
Give it a second and let me know if it starts to peak out with some kind of plum or like a dark fruit like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
tasting,
I could find a little bit of dark fruit in there.
Tasting, it's definitely, so that, as you were saying it, I took my first like sip off of it, and it's definitely got that funky farmhouse vibe to it, which I'm never quite sure what to actually call that flavor other than funky farmhouse type thing.
Hay. I usually just refer to it as hay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, it's still got a very herbal quality to it, for sure. It's not intense. It's not overpowering. What's the ABV on this one?
5.2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really noticing that all that much. Like, it's definitely not like it's not something that's going to like put you down like that. There's no heat on it or anything along those lines. It goes down nice and smooth, so that's a good thing. I don't know that I would go as far as to call this refreshing, but I could see how this could almost be like something just to kind of mellow out. I almost want like a campfire or something to sit by with this.
Yeah, it does have almost a smoky quality to it. It has that funky, that farmhousey hay kind of quality to it. It has a bit of, you can taste that kind of spicy, peppery note on the finish. It also has some of those kind of those Belgian classic characteristics of not so much banana, but I get a little bit of like kind of banana flavor in there. And I definitely get the clove, and the clove comes in with the peppery kind of taste at the finish. So it's definitely in that Saison family, but it's a little bit, like you said, a little bit herbal, a little bit almost kind of earthy in there as well. It has like a real kind of almost like an umami, like earthy flavor in it.
Mouthfeel wise, this is about on par with like a standard ale. Like it's not, I don't know if this sounds gross or not, but I don't know a better way to say it. It's not like chewy. It's not like, oil thick or anything like that. It's carbonated really well. Like I actually like that. That balances out really nice and gives it a good, like lighter mouthfeel. I don't think this is going to sit too heavy as we go through it either. So that's also generally something I enjoy.
Yeah, I really like the mouthfeel on this. It's not crisp. And like you said, I don't know if I'd necessarily call it like a refreshing mouthfeel, but it has, it's got that like just kind of, I don't know, it's just got that nice coating mouthfeel to it. It's really just medium bodied. It's not light. It's not super thin. But like you said, it's got those kind of really, straight down the middle ale qualities.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is definitely kind of, I don't want to call it like off brand for them, because it's not. Like they do different types of beer. Like obviously we were just there the other day and they had a whole bunch of different styles up, but I like that this is a little bit different than what I would expect to get from North Center on a regular basis. I have no idea if this is something that they would say is outside their comfort zone or something they're trying that's different. That's probably a reach to assume that. But for me, as someone who, like when I drink their beer, this is outside of what I would normally find from them. And I like that it's kind of mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think we should kind of take a minute to talk about what kind of style of beer they do. I find that they really run the table. They do all different sorts of beers. I don't generally see that many like dark beers, stout kind of beers. Having said that, I had a French toast porter when we were there, but they do a lot of the traditional styles. They have a couple lagers like we already had. They have a lot of IPA kind of variations. They do one of the blueberry wheat nice bloobs is like one I look forward to every time it comes out, because that's a really solid beer.
I don't know when the last time was they had it on, but they do a Russian Imperial that is absolutely killer. It's fantastic. And if I remember right, it's right around like 9.5%, 10%, which for that style of beer is a little bit on the lower end, but it's still got all the heavy, dark, everything that you want out of that type of big Imperial stout. They do usually have a porter on pretty much all the time too. I think is it a coconut porter? I have their website up. I guess I could take a look at it. I like that they do a lot more traditional stuff. Their brewers there are both really, really good at honing in on what works well and like just really cranking out really solid beers. They're two brewers. Cody's been there for a long time. I think it said on the website that Cody's been there since 2015 and has always made high quality stuff. And they also have Joe, who was previously at a different brewery that we're not going to name, but he's really it's actually one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to this hazy, because his hazy IPAs that he's worked on in the past have always been ones that almost always kind of fall right into my wheelhouse as far as what I like.
Yeah, we should say that they have been open. They just recently celebrated their 7th anniversary. They did a birthday smash, which is their birthday IPA that they do. And I've had that a couple of years now. And that is always like, it blows me away how good that is. Not to say that it shouldn't be, but it is like from a small brewery like they are, it always comes out really well. The few, the last couple of years I've had it, that's one now that I feel like if they keep doing it year to year, which I think that they probably will, that's one I'll always go in and pick up a 4-pack of, because it's easy drinking, it's smooth. They've changed the hops. I think they changed the hops a little bit every year. Whatever, is available, they try to stick to what they can, as close as possible to what they can get. But year over year, it's been a really good beer. And that's like I said, that's one I always pick up because I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. They have trying to look it up now because it's not on currently, but they do, I want to say it's a West Coast style IPA. I'm trying to pull it up to find out for sure. But I mean, actually, most of their IPAs I actually like quite a bit, which is saying something from me.
Yeah, you're not a big IPA guy, so that's kind of surprising.
Yeah, and I do like theirs in general, I like theirs a lot. I found them to be quite not only approachable, but enjoyable, which is huge. Northern Sky, I was close. That's one that is, let's see, it's a Norwegian IPA that uses Voskivik yeast with some notes, blah, blah, blah. Point being is, whenever that's on, like, I'll at least grab either a pint or a can or whatever the case is. Wherever I find it, I'm picking it up. It is a very enjoyable IPA. Not one that we have today to taste, but
that's my
worth
fault.
grabbing.
Blame me.
It's actually not your fault. I don't think it was available because I was kind of looking for it. So
you could have blamed me anyways. I have broad shoulders. I can carry it.
I blame you for everything. That's why I didn't have a proper introduction for you at the beginning of this episode.
No fun. I didn't give you any ammunition this time.
Well, like I said, I got distracted by the other thing that I spent a good chunk of time this week watching, which was Obi-Wan. I finally found a reason to use my Disney Plus subscription for at least an evening.
Are those hour-long episodes or are they half-hour?
About 45 minutes. The first one's about an hour because for some fucking reason they spend 15 minutes recapping the entire prequel trilogy, which I was looking at, I'm like, who the fuck is watching this that hasn't seen those movies? Like, who's going into Star Wars like, I'll just start right in the middle of the fucking story?
Well, that's how
that's how they started the original movies. Yeah. So,
look at the audience you're talking about.
That's true. I don't think I've ever asked or we've ever had a conversation about this. Are you a Star Wars fan, or is that something that you get into?
I think if you would have asked me when Phantom Menace came out, if you said, are you a Star Wars fan? I would have said, absolutely. I loved the first trilogy, right? I watched the second trilogy, the prequelogy, if that's even a word, if that's what it's called, the prequel trilogy, before Force Awakens, which is episode, 7? Yeah, 7. We did a marathon. I watched them all. Yeah. We did machete order, so watched them all in the order that that people say the actual story plays out in or makes the most sense. But with the fandom of Star Wars and all the stuff that's coming out, like all the movies, all the series, all the stuff, it's kind of become like Marvel to me, where I'll probably watch it when it comes out because I want to be part of the discussion. I don't want it spoiled for me, but I'm not I'm not a diehard fan anymore. I did watch Mando, The Mandalorian. I did not watch Book of Boba Fett, and I haven't watched Obi-Wan yet.
So before Disney bought them, yeah, it's fair.
Well, they did buy them.
To say it.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
True statement.
So before Disney, I would say that I was a pretty big Star Wars fan, like especially with three things in particular. I really liked the original trilogy, like every other nerd.
Sure.
This is when I was still moderately interested in video games, and I played the ever-living shit out of the Knights of the Old Republic series to the point where I was like, well, now I got to go read the books because I want to hear more about this Revan dude and all this shit. So I really like those. And I liked a lot of the other expanded universe books and stuff like that too. Prequels, there were things I liked about them. There were things I didn't like about them. That's when I started realizing that what a lot of nerds don't want to admit is that Star Wars is a children's story. So when those started coming out, I started realizing, like, oh, there's a lot of stuff in this that I think I would like. That look you just gave me was pretty classic. So
I didn't want to interrupt you.
I
didn't want to interrupt you. No, I agree with you, but a lot of people would not agree. But I don't want to interrupt what you're saying, so continue.
Well, that's when I started kind of realizing, I'm like, there's a lot of things in this that I am finding really fucking dumb. But I'm pretty sure if I was 8 again, that I would be 100% on board with this, with no question. Then once Disney bought them, I didn't really like The Force Awakens that much. I thought it was okay. I'm in the minority that I really like The Last Jedi because they were finally trying to say, fuck these Skywalker brats. Let's do something other than talk about the goddamn Skywalkers for a movie. And then, the internet had a temper tantrum and they immediately rewrote it, and I don't even know what the fuck happened in the last movie that they did. It's the only Star Wars movie of any type that I haven't watched more than once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't watched the last two more than once, just the one time. I did not like... Well, I liked The Last Jedi. I liked parts of it, but there were parts of it I didn't like. I didn't like the whole Rose, John Boyega.
Yeah,
I don't understand why they just went on this MacGuffin. Oh, Jesus. They went on this MacGuffin like
Go to
search.
Space Vegas.
Yeah, that just didn't make, like, why do that? And I like the end. I like that. Spoiler again for a 5-6-year-old movie at this point. That
It's got to be more than that.
yeah, I think it's about that. But Luke, like, he dies, right? Like he sacrifices himself, he projects himself, and then he collapses because he's tired. It's taken so much out of him, and he dies. I like the end. I didn't like where they went with the next movie because it just didn't make any sense. They were trying to make this. I don't know. Some people love it. Some people love the trilogies too, and some people are wrong. So, there's but yeah, I don't put a lot of stock into it. Like I said, I like Mando a lot.
Yeah.
I, at one point, may have considered getting a Mandalorian Boba Fett, like, tattoo or something, but no, I wouldn't do that now. And I would really regret it if I would have done that.
Yeah, I liked Mando a lot, all the way up until the last episode of season 2, and really like the last 10 minutes of season 2, to be more accurate. I'm kind of over the Skywalkers. I think I got 2 episodes into Boba Fett and was really bored with watching. I was like, this guy has my, like, physique and is running around trying to be Boba Fett. That's not exactly a vote of confidence.
But the thing, okay, so this is the thing that always bothers me. So the guy that plays Boba Fett in the Book of Boba Fett is the guy who plays Jango Fett in the prequels, right? Because he's a clone. It's like all the soldiers are clones of Boba Fett. Well, no, Jango Fett is the dad, sure. Boba Fett's the kid, but he's still a clone. They changed all that stuff, to be that guy. I can swear on one of the copies somewhere that they show what Boba Fett actually looks like in the first movie, like either in A New Hope or in Empire Strikes Back. I feel like when he gets in Slave One and he flies away, there's a point where his visor is up. And that may be on the VHS tapes. That may be before they remastered it. That's the thing with Star Wars is they've changed it so many fucking times that the thing that you don't know. I mean, I have a VHS. I have the tapes. I could play it back if I wanted to, but I just don't give a shit. I don't give enough of a shit to watch it. They show what he looks like. It obviously isn't that guy that is playing Boba Fett now. And that's the thing that I always get, like, it's not this, it's not the same guy. I don't like that they retcon all that shit all the time.
Yeah, well, that's annoying too. But I remember seeing like a production still of the guy playing Boba Fett without the helmet on.
Yeah.
I don't remember it from the VHS, or I think I had the Laserdisc too, or any version that I had.
Sure.
I don't remember seeing him in the movie without it. But you might be right. I'm not. I don't care enough to prove you wrong or to debate it. To be honest,
I wouldn't want to even talk about it anymore.
Right. Anyway, Obi-Wan, I had 2 friends that were very, like, one of them that requested that we do an episode on it. And I was like, at that point, I was like, I haven't even watched it yet. I don't think Sean is watching. I don't know if I care to convince him to watch it.
I will watch it. I feel like I have to. I'm compelled.
Well, I could, so without ruining anything in it, I can say this. As far as Star Wars things go, for where we're at right now, it's on the higher end. It's pretty well done. The story is fine for what it is. I honestly think Ewan McGregor is like way too good of an actor for this franchise, and I'm including the prequels in this. Like, I think there's little things that he does in this show, especially where I'm like, man, you are just acting the fuck out of everything on Disney Plus right now, and I'm sorry, they don't deserve you, Obi-Wan. So he's fantastic. There's some really cool things they do with, I don't know what you do and don't know about the shows or anyone else for that matter, because it's still pretty new. It's only been out for like a month, something like that. So for those who don't know what characters other than Obi-Wan are or are not in this, I don't want to ruin that.
Yeah.
But the characters that you know, or that you will know as soon as you start watching it, I think they handle them all pretty well. That being said, there's at least 3 to 5 times an episode where I'm like, well, how the fuck did that happen? Or why the fuck did, you're using an adult brain to watch a children's story and you're like,
this doesn't make sense. Yeah. Why doesn't this make sense?
Yeah. Or why did this happen here but not there? That type of shit. So it's got a lot of that, but I mean, overall, it's a pretty entertaining show. It's only 6 episodes, and once you get aside from the first episode, they're about 45 minutes each. So, you can get through it. I got through it today in an afternoon without a problem. Pretty easy to kind of marathon through fairly quickly if you don't have anyone yelling at you or anything like that. So maybe not that easy.
For me, not that easy.
Usually not for me either. I got lucky. But I would say if you have at any point liked Star Wars at pretty much any level, it's worth giving a try for that, because you're really looking at about, I don't know, 3.5, 4 hours or so that you're really devoting to it. It's not too bad to get through. And obviously, because it's broken up in episodes, you could pause it and take a break if you really need it.
Yeah, maybe I'll go back and not go back. Maybe we can do an upcoming episode on it, and we'll just kind of run through the series as a whole rather than, how we do sometimes with the movies and delve into them a little bit deeper.
I don't want to do an episode. I'll tell you right now, I don't want to do like a 6-episode piece on like that's. I could get everything out like that I would need to bitch about and compliment it in. It might be an episode that runs long, but I could say we could get it done within an hour and a half.
Yeah, I don't even know if
probably not even that.
I have enough thoughts on it to even say that much.
If I have to watch it again, I bet I'll have that many thoughts on it. What else did I watch this week? Did I have anything else I put on? I hung out with you yesterday, so I didn't watch anything then. Yeah, no, I went back and watched a little bit of UFC 275, the things I didn't finish, which that was a really good event as a whole. If you want to go back and watch one, like every fight in that, basically someone's face got exploded, so that's usually a good thing.
Is that on the main card?
All the way through. The prelims were good too.
Oh, so, okay.
I think I sent you a picture of one of the prelims where the dude's head like was gorging out. So yeah, that one was good. Actually, from start to finish, that was the best UFC event that I watched in the last like month or so. A lot of them have been just guys kind of circling and dancing, and that's kind of This one, people were actually punching each other.
Yeah, I watched the Yan Jacek Wei Ling match with the whole card with my friend who doesn't watch UFC. I was like, oh, you want to watch the UFC thing? And he's like, yeah, let's watch it. And I was like, okay. And I had to kind of explain to him, like, yeah, sometimes they can be exciting, right? Like they're on the feet the whole time, or they might be they might actually be grappling or wrestling or whatever, but it's still entertaining. And then sometimes it can just be like they're laying on top of each other for, 5 minutes a round and nothing happens. Yeah. And by the end, it's just a coin flip as to who's going to win because it's just so uninteresting. But I know that whole card was really good too. So it sounds like the last couple have been actually really good cards if you're into UFC at all.
I'm actually looking forward to tomorrow. So, well, behind the curtain, today is July 1st. So we're on 4th of July weekend. Well, you'll hear this later. But I have the house to myself this weekend. So I plan on just kind of gorging and watching people beat their brains in until midnight-ish. Something like that.
As you do.
What else would you do?
Right.
Third beer for the night is Hazy Fool New England IPA. You are the authority on reading labels, so I'll let you do that.
All right. Let me start off then. This is Hazy Fool. It's a New England style IPA. It says a New England style IPA that has a blend of hops that lend a sublime flavor of melon, pineapple, and dank citrus. This is 7.5% alcohol by volume. Brewed and bottled by Center Brewing Company in Northville, Michigan. If you like it, it's a good beer. One thing I noticed before I even cracked this, on the label, it even tells you, what have I been preaching about, John, in IPAs? Flavor.
Dates. Oh. No lactose.
Pineapple.
Oh, pineapple, yeah.
This is this label's like, it looks like it's kind of clouds, like yellow clouds. If the 7.5% that they show is a sun, actually. So this is mimicking a sky. What are your impressions first off?
I like the nose on this. It's super fresh. You're definitely getting, I would go as far, I'd say cantaloupe, melon, something like that. Maybe a little bit of honeydew. Pineapple, yeah. You get a good solid, I'm using an IPA glass, so I had about a solid 2.5 fingers ahead. Definitely a hop presence on the nose, which you would expect in New England. It is hazy to the point where I can't even see like a shadow of my finger through it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, this is No joke. This is one of the thickest beers I've seen. This is probably the thickest beer that I've ever seen from North Center. And just an IPA, like overall, it's pretty, this is really thick looking.
What are your impressions on nose, can sniffing, all that?
I didn't sniff the can, but as soon as I poured it, I could smell it. This head is still hanging on like nuts. It's not budged one bit. Yeah, citrus.
Mine's starting to die off, and I poured maybe a solid minute before you did.
Yeah, so I'm getting big citrus. Yeah, I would say melon, like you said, maybe more like a honeydew kind of melon in there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say pineapple just by default because it has a sweeter kind of aroma. But I mean, the head's still just sitting on there like a block. It's not really budged too much.
So flavor wise, you definitely get like a whole melon salad in there. The whole kit and caboodle, all of them. That pineapple's definitely popping up. There's I assume this is the whatever hops they use for this that's doing it, but I'm getting a very bitter back end, which I'm not. It's not a negative. It's an IPA bitter, but it finishes kind of dry and bitter for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it has that nice kind of that citrus. It does. I pick up on a lot of citrus. It's very juicy, very citrusy. It has that citrus bitterness to it. It does have that little kind of kick of sweet pineapple, and the finish, like you said, it is actually now even talking. It's really dry on the finish. It dries out really quick, and that's where the bitterness kind of comes through. What's that?
I almost choked up a little bit trying to talk through it. Like it dries up that much. But this for me, like this is like a poolside beer. If you want something that's got a little more to it, and again, I didn't check the ABV on this, but I'm assuming this is probably around 7-8%.
Yeah,
something like that. I was right on the ball.
Yep.
If you want something that's a little more summery, a little more pool-like, a little more out back in the sun, this is a great way to go.
Bloomin' onion, please.
Sure.
You said out back in the sun. I mean, that's a perfect out back in the sun dish, isn't it? Like a bloomin' onion. Give me that dip.
Hazy Fool, Australian, New England IPA. I can't even say
Hazy
it right.
Fool, New England IPA for beer.
Aussie IPA. Foster's.
This is, this is really good. Like, I am really impressed by this. This should have been what we led off with. I mean, it's the highest ABV, so maybe not, but
I don't care about the ABV part. For me, I don't like leading off with IPAs because maybe this is more me than you, but they tend to blow out my palate. So if I start with an IPA, it's going to affect everything that I have after the IPA. So that's why I usually don't like to start with them.
I'm going to let you in on a secret. I record multiple episodes at one time. So it doesn't matter to me.
I already knew that.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't matter. I start with IPA sometimes. I don't. So it doesn't really affect, for me personally, it doesn't affect me too much. But I mean, I could see that especially if you get one that's really strong, like in any direction, I could see that totally just like wiping out any other kind of taste that you pick up after that.
Well, and I don't know how long you take to record each episode that you do, but we are right now roughly an hour into the show, and this is the third beer that we're trying. So it's not like there's a lot to kind of distance yourself from part 1 to part 3.
Yeah, I take about 10 minutes. I take about 15 to 20 minutes per, because I screw up a lot.
Record 7 episodes in a day.
Yeah, I wish. Jeez.
So you just go upstairs, just totally shit hammered. No, honey, I was just recording.
That's why I do it late at night, so I don't have to answer to anybody. But no, this is really just to kind of get back on this. This is legit like a really great beer, and I'm really surprised. Like,
no, I would completely put this up with. So we're in Michigan, so I'll use some local stuff like your M43s. This guy, Cloud 19. Like, I think this would hold its own with all those. If you were to put them all right together, I'm sure you. Probably if you gave 4 different people the same 4 beers, you'd probably have 4 different things that they like the best because they're all great beers.
Sure.
But I think this would hold its own without a problem.
They're different animals, right? So I would say Cloud 19 is probably the closest, and maybe this guy's pretty close. When I took my first drink, I was really surprised that this didn't have lactose in it because of how thick it is. Like, we didn't ever talk about the mouthfeel, but it's got a really nice, thick, heavy New England style, juicy style IPA mouthfeel. It's got a really nice coating mouthfeel, really soft, just really juicy. Like it's I can't. Juicy is like the perfect kind of descriptor for this kind of beer because it's got that really nice, heavy juice like mouthfeel, like you're drinking juice.
It's thick, juicy, and puffy all at the same time. It is not a sticky or a dank IPA. I wouldn't call it that at all.
Yeah, not at all. No, it doesn't cling. Like you said, I think
No.
the thing that sets it apart, honestly, from the M43s, from the This Guys, from, the Cloud 19s, from the Ascension kind of stuff, is that the aftertaste is so dry. Like a lot of those beers are kind of more, they really cloy a little bit more. And this one just dries. It's totally dry at the finish. It's like you almost have to take another taste to replenish the flavor that you're getting out of this because it's just so innocuous at the end. It's just really, it doesn't leave an impression, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing because sometimes you take a drink of a beer, it dries your mouth out so much that it's like, I need to take another drink, to just kind of feel like there's some kind of moisture in my mouth. With this, you take that drink, you swallow, and it's like, oh, okay, well, there's not that need to take another drink. I mean, you should because this is delicious, but on the other side of the coin, you don't have to because it's not leaving like that really strong aftertaste.
That kind of lends to what I was saying about why I prefer to end with IPAs when we're doing these. I grabbed another beer that's just because we usually shoot the shit a little bit like separately, but this doesn't feel like once we get through this one, I don't feel like I couldn't grab another beer and be like unable to tell what the hell I'm drinking. So if you wanted to, I'm a big fan of like pairing beer with food. And one of the things that can be a real bummer is when you get, we'll just say a burger, for example. The burger might be great, but if the beer is just like beating it over the head with, I don't know, coriander.
Subtle hints of coriander.
Oh, right. Beating it over the head with subtle hints of coriander. I like that. That's a sentence I want chiseled on my tombstone.
What an accomplishment in your life. That's what I want chiseled on my tombstone.
He was beat over the head with subtle hints of coriander.
All right. I want that on my tombstone.
The authority of Michigan craft beer.
Was beat over the head. That's what I want my obituary. The authority on Michigan craft beer was beat over the head with subtle hints of coriander.
Well, I guess I have to outlive you now so I can write your obituary because it's going to be a real shit show.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
But anyway, yeah, back to the beer. This feels like something that if you want something more hoppy, more fruity and whatnot, that you can have this and it doesn't necessarily like drown out something else that you would have with it. We're obviously not chewing on something right now, but I don't feel like this would overshadow it to the point where it would take away from whatever you're pairing it with.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. With that aftertaste, with that flavor, that the finish, because it's not so crazy, because it's not beating you over the head with it. It's something that you could follow it up with anything, and it's not going to blow your palate out. That's like one of the highest compliments as far as I'm concerned, where it's not something that lingers with you. You have to eat or drink something else so you can get the taste out of your mouth. That's awesome. Like, I don't know who at North Center put this together, but this is like a genius work. This is really good.
I have a suspicion on who did, but I don't want to say for sure because if I'm wrong, I don't want to take away credit from where credit's due.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
we don't know. We weren't there, but
no.
I'd be so bold to say that if you go to North Center Brewing Company and that they have Hazy Full, if you're a New England style fan, this is an awesome beer. This is probably going to be one of the best, new New Englands that you've had in a long time.
Yeah, I would say unless you just flat out don't like New England's, this is probably worth trying. Truthfully, if you go there and you haven't been there, you should really just get a flight of a bunch of different things. Again, when we were there the other day, I think I drank 3 different sours, which is usually not where I would go. And they had Pilsner on tap. I was totally like not only content, but like happy about everything that I got. So they're definitely a good brewery that if there's something different up there that you want to try, like give it a chance. One that we did not grab a can of, but I really like that they do, and you don't see it a lot of breweries, is their English bitter. Have you tried that one?
I've had it in the past. It's been a while, but yeah, they're one of the few local places that do ESBs.
Yeah.
Like that's a style that you really don't see represented very much here in Michigan.
Yeah, and it is a really, really solid beer. It's the reason why I didn't suggest it for today is I like it more once the weather starts to turn and get a little, like, I think it's a better fall beer than it is summer beer, even though it's a fairly lighter, lower ABV at least beer, that style, but it's a fantastic beer, and it's almost always on there. I'm pretty sure it's been on every time I've been there in the last year or so. They're one of the few places that not only have it, but feature it on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of their flagships. I feel like every time I go in there, they have Bobby English, the ESB. Like, it's just kind of engraved into your head, you know, oh, Bobby English. Like, I didn't have to look it up. I knew what the name was because it's every time I go there, they have it. Right. So I think it's just one of their like year-round flagships. We're always going to have ESB on tap.
Actually, it's a little higher ABV than I thought. It's a 6% looking at it now, but it's a super solid beer. I'm sure we'll talk about North Center again at some point in the future just because we both go there, and behind the curtain, it's a good kind of middle ground between where you live and where I live. Yeah. So that helps too. But that's absolutely one that I could, if you're someone who just doesn't like IPA, but doesn't want a lager either, wants kind of that middle ground, it's an absolute perfect beer. And that's actually one thing that a lot of breweries don't have, is that whether it's a brown ale, a red ale, whatever, something between IPA and lager that still is a good craft option, but not necessarily a porter or a stout or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say there's not a lot of places that have a nice middle ground that have, you know, not only the ales and the lagers, and we can say ales or IPAs, stouts, all that kind of stuff, and lagers. You know, some places are specializing in lagers. Like we think of some place like Wolverine. That's what they do, right? They only do lagers.
It's all they do.
Yeah, and there's a lot of places that either do one or they do the other, and they don't do, you know, if they do a lot of ales, they don't do very many lagers, or if they do a lot of lagers, they don't do very many ales. And that's the thing about North Center that's great about them, is that they do, like, they run the gamut. They, like we just said, they have an ESB that's like a regular thing that they have, but they also have, you know, they do a West Coast IPA if you catch it at the right time. They do IPAs all the time, obviously, because everybody has to do an IPA because that seems like that's what everybody drinks, even though that's not the only beer style.
They do a Norwegian IPA that even I like.
Yeah. And believe it or not everybody loves IPAs. So they have porters. Like you said, you tried a bunch of different beers when we were there, and they were sours, you know, for the most part. That's great. You know, they just cater to everybody, but it doesn't always have to be IPA. Like if you do an ale, it doesn't always have to be an IPA. It can be an ESB. It could be, you know, it could be a porter. It could be a brown ale. I love those styles. I love those old traditional styles, and that's what North Center does. And they do them really well. I mean, we've had a couple examples here that have been just off the charts.
Yeah, absolutely. They do a pretty good job of pulling out new stuff on a regular basis, too. Again, they're another great follow for all your socials, which we should plug that might as well do it now while we're at it. I'm pretty sure they're just North Center Beer or something like that. Let me double check, because I'll probably say it wrong. But they do pretty regular updates. They might not update every day, I'm not sure, but they very frequently will update what they have on tap, what they have in cans, what they have on their food menu. They do have a kitchen now, which is a relatively new addition. I'm not sure exactly when that went in, but I mean, we both ate there this week, and I had a burger that was really solid. You had a sandwich, and I didn't hear you complain about it.
It was gone too quick to complain about it.
Right. They are at North Center Brewing to follow. So, and again, strongly recommend that as well. They'll keep you in the loop as to what they have going on. At least, I know they pop up for me at least 2-3 times a week, if not more.
Yeah, you said, they don't post necessarily every day, but they always post if they have a new beer on tap, if they have a new beer coming up. So while it's not every day, it's a nice follow because they tell you what, you know, like what you can expect when you go there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Or for that matter, if you just really want, I don't know, the Norwegian IPA that I've been talking about, that whenever it comes up again, they'll post it that they have it, or whatever other cool things are going on. So definitely a good follow for that. They interact really well. They will reply pretty quickly, which is good. Like if you have a question like, hey,
do you have that Norwegian IPA on tap? They'll be like, no,
yeah,
we don't have that yet.
You'll actually get a response. You're not just talking to you're not talking to the void.
Right.
I can't wait for the message I get where it's like, would you shut up about that fucking Norwegian IPA?
We don't do that
Really
anymore.
funny.
What the hell's wrong with you?
Right. That was so 2021, bro. At the end of the day, again, this is a brewery that we absolutely recommend. They're in a really cool spot. Their staff is fantastic. Everyone is just among the best people in the brewing industry. They're going to treat you right, and they're going to give you good beer to either drink there, take home, or both. We can't recommend this place strongly enough. So in the meantime, I think we're going to wrap it here on this holiday weekend. We are at Dewey Pod Monster on every social media. Apparently, I somehow have gotten ourselves suspended of some sort on Twitter by using Twitter. I don't know exactly what happened there, but I was told that my account is got some kind of handcuff on it, but I'm still able to tweet things. So go ahead and follow us there. Maybe I'll get suspended more. So do that. Make sure to leave us some feedback. That's why I'm supposed to say. Leave us feedback, subscribe, like, all that stuff. Share us on your social medias that are not suspended. And before I screw up more, Sean, where are you? Plug your plugs.
You can find me at youtube.drafttherapy.com. That'll take you directly to my YouTube channel. I talk about mostly Michigan beer. I consider myself to be an expert on Michigan craft beer. But yeah, you can find me there on my YouTube stuff. Generally do Michigan craft beer, but I also do stuff outside of the state. You can also find me on all the social networks at Draft Therapy.
All right. Well, again, it is 4th of July weekend. You're going to get this later, but, make sure to do things safely, like hold the fireworks real close to you until the wick is at least very close to where it's going to blow up. Don't really do that. Anyway, have fun, be safe out there. We'll be back at you next week and talk about something else. Cheers.
My fingers, they're all blown to bits. Blow your fingers off or don't. That's the first time I've ever done it, like truly done it. And I felt like I nailed it.
It's not that much of a
it's not a big accomplishment.
talent, so
I was proud of it. Fine, fuck you.